June 15th, 1966. 18 U.S. Marines find themselves trapped on a lonely hilltop deep inside enemy territory. Around them, more than 200 enemy soldiers are closing in from all sides. Their radio is failing, their ammunition is almost gone, and nearly every man is wounded. Yet, for 12 brutal hours, they refuse to surrender. This isn't a story about numbers. It's about courage, leadership, and the unbreakable bond between brothers in arms. This is the incredible last stand on Hill 488, one of the most heroic small unit battles in Marine Corps history. Deep in the jungles of central Vietnam, a single recon team was sent on a mission that seemed simple: watch and report. But what began as a routine observation mission quickly turned into a desperate fight for survival. A fight where every bullet counted, every decision meant life or death, and every second mattered. By dawn, the hill was covered with bodies. 6 Marines had made the ultimate sacrifice. 12 were wounded, and yet not a single man had surrendered. This is the true story of how 18 Marines stood their ground against impossible odds, and how their courage on a lonely hill became legendary. Before we dive deeper into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button, because over 90% of viewers who watch these forgotten battles aren't subscribed yet. Our mission is to bring you the real stories of courage, sacrifice, and strategy from history's most intense wars. Stories like Hill 488 that deserve to be remembered. And trust me, you'll want to stay with us until the very end of this video, because the final moments of this battle will leave you speechless. After the Korean War, Staff Sergeant Jimmie Howard had already proven himself in battle. By 1966, he was a veteran Marine, calm under pressure, respected by his men, and trusted with missions that required absolute discipline. That is why the Marine Corps selected him to lead a small recon team of just 18 men into the jungles of central Vietnam. Their mission was clear: climb a 488-foot hill near a small farming village called Phu Loc, observe enemy troop movements, and call in air or artillery strikes if needed. It was supposed to be a short, dangerous, but routine operation. On June 13, the team was dropped in by helicopter and established an observation post on the hill. From that rocky summit, they had a wide view of the valleys and trails below, perfect for spotting enemy movement, but terrible for protection. The hilltop offered little cover. If they were discovered, there would be nowhere to hide. At first, the mission was quiet, but within a day, Howard's men began noticing more and more enemy patrols moving nearby. They were not just passing through. The patrols were increasing in number, and they were circling closer. Howard radioed his findings and requested permission to pull back. The answer came fast and clear: hold your position. By the evening of June 14, the situation on the hill was changing fast. What had started as scattered enemy patrols was turning into something far more serious. Howard and his team could now see dozens of enemy soldiers moving in small groups through the jungle below. They were carrying weapons, digging shallow fighting positions, and setting up along the trails. It was clear they weren't just passing through. They were preparing for something. As darkness approached, Howard climbed to the highest point of the hill and scanned the area with his binoculars. Everywhere he looked, the enemy was moving. His team was not just being watched, they were being surrounded. By nightfall, intelligence suggested that 200 to 300 enemy troops were closing in. Howard sent another radio message, warning that the enemy buildup was significant and that their position was about to be attacked. But the order from command did not change. They were to stay put and continue gathering intelligence. The Marines tightened their defensive perimeter. They checked their weapons, counted their ammunition, and prepared for a fight they all knew was coming. Each man found a position behind rocks or shallow depressions in the earth. It wasn't much, but it was all they had. The air grew silent as night settled over the jungle. Then, just before 10 o'clock on the night of June 15th, the silence shattered. Whistles blew, voices shouted in the darkness, and then came the sound of footsteps, hundreds of them, rushing up the slopes of Hill 488. The battle for the hill had begun. The first wave hit with terrifying speed. More than 200 enemy soldiers charged up the slopes, shouting and firing as they came. Howard's men waited until they were close, then unleashed a storm of rifle and machine gun fire that tore through the attackers. Dozens fell in the first moments, but the enemy kept coming. They were determined to overwhelm the small Marine team by sheer numbers. The fight turned into chaos. Enemy troops crawled and sprinted through the darkness, throwing grenades and firing from every direction. The Marines shifted from target to target, moving between their shallow positions to keep the enemy guessing. Every shot had to count. Their ammunition was limited and resupply was impossible. Wounded Marines refused to fall back. Some hit multiple times, dragged themselves to better positions, and kept firing. The two Navy corpsmen worked under heavy fire, crawling through bullets and explosions to treat the injured. Communication with air support was patchy, but Howard managed to call in danger-close airstrikes, bombs and napalm falling just meters from their perimeter. It was a desperate gamble, but it slowed the enemy advance. At times, the fighting became hand-to-hand. Marines threw grenades at point-blank range. When those ran out, they hurled rocks. Anything that could stop the enemy was used. The air filled with smoke, dust, and the sounds of shouting and gunfire. Wave after wave crashed against Hill 488. Each one was beaten back, but at a terrible cost. By the middle of the night, nearly every man was wounded, ammunition was running low, and the enemy was still climbing. Yet not one Marine thought about surrender. They were holding the line, no matter what it took. By the time the first light of dawn touched the jungle on June 16th, the Marines on Hill 488 had been fighting for more than 5 hours without pause. Their ammunition was almost gone. Many had only a few rounds left, some none at all. Every man was wounded, some lightly, others barely conscious. But still, they refused to leave their positions. Howard moved from one Marine to the next, encouraging them, checking their weapons, and relaying targets to the aircraft overhead. Even with blood soaking through his uniform from multiple wounds, he stayed calm. He knew that if they could hold out just a little longer, help might reach them. The enemy was relentless. They launched new attacks just before sunrise, hoping to finish the job before American reinforcements could arrive. But the Marines fought back with everything they had left. Single rifle shots, burst from a nearly empty machine gun, even thrown grenades and stones. Howard called in another series of danger-close airstrikes, this time even closer than before. Explosions tore through enemy positions, only yards away from the Marines. It was risky. One mistake could kill them all, but it bought precious time. At around 7 in the morning, the distant thump of helicopter rotors grew louder. Reinforcements from the Marine Corps and supporting units were finally on their way. U.S. aircraft intensified their strikes around the hill, hammering enemy positions and forcing them to pull back. As the helicopters descended and Marines rushed to secure the area, the enemy began to retreat into the jungle. Hill 488 was still in American hands. The exhausted survivors had done the impossible. They had held the hill. When the smoke finally cleared and the last shots faded into silence, the scene on Hill 488 told the story of what had happened there. The ground was scarred with craters and littered with spent shells. Dozens of enemy bodies lay scattered across the slopes. The Marines had held their position, but the cost had been staggering. Of the 18 men who had climbed the hill just 3 days earlier, 6 had made the ultimate sacrifice and 12 were wounded, most of them seriously. Every single man had been hit. Some had fought through multiple gunshot wounds, refusing to quit even when they could barely stand. Yet not one Marine had surrendered or abandoned his post. Enemy losses were harder to measure. American reports confirmed at least 40 enemy soldiers killed, but estimates suggested the true number was much higher, perhaps 150 to 200 dead and wounded. Their repeated attacks had failed to break the Marines' thin defensive line. The story of Hill 488 spread quickly through the ranks. Marines across Vietnam spoke of the 18-man recon team that stood against hundreds and refused to fall. Their bravery became a symbol of what the Marine Corps stood for: discipline, loyalty, and the will to fight on against impossible odds. Staff Sergeant Jimmie E was awarded the Medal of Honor for his leadership and courage. Every member of his team received a high decoration, including multiple Navy Crosses, Silver Stars, and Bronze Stars. Today, Hill 488 is remembered as one of the most extraordinary small unit actions in Marine Corps history. It was a story not about victory or territory, but about unbreakable spirit, proof that courage can stand firm even when outnumbered 10 to 1. The story of Hill 488 is not just about a battle. It's about the unbreakable spirit of a small group of men who refuse to give in, no matter the cost. Surrounded, outnumbered, and running out of ammunition, they stood their ground against overwhelming odds and held that barren hill. Their courage wasn't driven by orders or medals. It came from something deeper: loyalty to one another, trust in their training, and the unshakable belief that no man would be left behind. In the face of near certain death, they chose to fight together until the very end. Today, Hill 488 remains a powerful reminder of what courage truly means. It shows us that bravery isn't about the size of your force, it's about the strength of your will. 18 Marines walked up that hill. 6 made the ultimate sacrifice, but because they refused to surrender, every one of them became part of a story that will never be forgotten. A story of brotherhood, resilience, and the will to stand firm when everything is against you. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe, and let us know in the comments, what do you think of the courage shown by these Marines?